Hi, welcome back to my channel. A while ago, I said that I wanted to recommend comic books. I've read so many comic books and graphic novels over the last year. I had never read any before that, never thought I'd be a comic book nerd, but here we are. And I figured that the best way to do this would be through tier maker, because I just have so many to talk about, and I just feel like this is the simplest way to do it. I've been thinking about starting a series here on my channel of like tipsy tier maker. This one is not tipsy because I wanted to actually get info through coherently, but I was thinking that I might do a video or two of tipsy tier maker in the next month or so, because I really want to talk about like horror movies and comedy shows and drama shows and whatnot. So I don't know, if that sounds interesting, let me know. I've got my laptop here, and so that's why I'll be looking down as I talk about these. Okay, I don't know how to scream. Hopefully this is actually screen recording, or else I'm going to cry. So I am going to try and give brief synopsises on each of these comics. I am worried that this video is going to be a million years long because we have 50 comic books here to talk about. I've read all of these over the last year. Some of them I've finished the entire series, some of them I've DNF'd, and I'll just tell you a little bit as to why. So as you can see, I have 6 different rankings here. We have God tier, which is obviously the best of the best, my favorites, good, meh, not good, total trash, and need to read more, because there are some comic books where like I just didn't get a good enough feel for it, and so I would have to read more to decide. So the first one that I'll be talking about here is Morning Glories. This comic I actually just read. I think it was like 50 or 60 issues, and it's basically about this school where like crazy things happen. They're being chosen for something, and it's all very, if you've seen the movie Lost, it's kind of like that, where everything's very vague and weird and crazy, and this was terrible. I hated this, and it didn't have an ending. The creator didn't finish the series. I did not know that going in, obviously, or else I wouldn't have read it. But even besides that, it was just so vague, and it just kept like beating around the bush so much that it became annoying after a while, so this is going in total trash. The next thing on this list is Fairest. This is a spin-off of Fables, and I guess I should have to explain Fables because we haven't done that one yet, but Fables is if you've seen Once Upon a Time, it's very similar to that. There are all these different fairy tales and fables, and they've been chased out of their homelands by some sort of adversary, and now they are in New York City, where they've created kind of their own little bubble of, it's called Fabletown, but it's in like the Mundy world. Anyways, Fairest is a spin-off of that one, and it's basically focusing more on the female stories because they weren't explored enough in the original series. So I haven't read a ton of Fairest, but the second volume was so good. The thing about Fables was it was entirely written by Bill Willingham, whereas Fairest, he kind of let other creators take on the story, and the second volume was just mind-blowingly good. So I haven't read the entire thing, but I am gonna put this in good because I love Fables so much, and like I said, the idea that other creators got to like dip their toe into this world, I think was a really good idea. The next thing here is Amber Blake. I read only like 1 or 2 issues of this. Oh no, or maybe I read the entire first volume. I can't remember, but I really didn't like it. It was about a girl who I think ends up in like the CIA or something, but like it's just like so much trauma porn. Like she goes through so much crap at the beginning, and it's just all so ridiculous, and I really didn't enjoy it. So I didn't read anymore, but like I don't need to read anymore. It's trash. The next thing here is The Woods. This is about a group of kids in a school, and something like post-apocalyptic sort of goes on, and it ends up being a little Lords of the Fly-ish. They're kind of fighting with authority, and they end up like going outside and realizing that their school's been transported somewhere else. So there's some sort of sci-fi element. I didn't really like it. I found it a little bland, not that exciting. The characters were all very stiff and like stereotypical. So this is going in not good. The next one here is The Milkman Murders. This is a one-off, like a completed graphic novel story. This is a very dark kind of satire take on a suburban family, and there's murder, and the graphics are really ugly, but it's a really ugly story, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna put this in good, because it's not quite God tier level, but it was really decent. Nailbiter. I love Nailbiter so much. This was one of the first graphic novels, or this was one of the first series I picked up. This has about 35 issues, I believe, and it's about this town that just keeps creating serial killers. The latest one is called Nailbiter, and it has a very Silence of the Lambs-esque type of feel, and it's going in God tier because it is still one of my favorites. I will say too, like, I thought the ending wasn't gonna hold up because when you create all this mystery, it just feels like no answer will be satisfying, but I actually found this one pretty satisfying, so I was impressed. The next one on this list is Goldie Vance. I picked this up recently, actually. I only read the first volume. It's a little bit like Nancy Drew, except that she is black and LGBTQ. It doesn't say specifically what she specifies as, but like, she has a crush on a girl, so I know that much at least. This, for me, is just too young. I wanted to like this, and like, there's nothing wrong with the writing. The writing is really good. It's just too young for me. I think if you enjoy middle grade though, you will absolutely enjoy this. I just personally don't enjoy middle grade. So this is just gonna go in meh, because it's definitely not good. It's just not for me. The next one is Winterworld. This is another post-apocalyptic type of comic. Those are very popular in graphic novels, it seems. So there was a like 1970s comic or 1980s comic that this started out as, and it's post-apocalyptic. The world is wintry. There's not much more about it than that. Eventually this guy and girl team up. I can't even remember how, but I couldn't get through the original because it was so like sexist and racist, and just like everything was offensive. So then I decided to try the reboot, which I guess starts off where the last one ended, but it's from like 2014 or something, and it was a lot better, but I just didn't get very far because it's weird to start in the middle of a story. Like, obviously I'm sure they wrote it in a way in which you could start there and be fine, but I felt wrong not reading the first part, but I just really didn't want to read the first part. So this is gonna go in need to read more. The next thing here is Zodiac Star Force, and this is another instance of something that I started and I just realized it was a lot too young for me. And once again, I realized like lots of people enjoy middle grade and younger things. I just don't. So I only read like 2 issues of this before I was like, no, this isn't for me. So this is gonna go in not good because it just felt really young to me. And once again, if you're a person who enjoys middle grade, you might enjoy it. But I will say, like, Goldie Vance at least kept me interested, whereas this one like didn't at all. So it had something to do with girls fighting some sort of power, and they're something to do with Zodiac, and it seemed kind of like Sailor Moon-ish, so if you like that, you might like this. The next thing is Bloodstain. I really enjoyed this, but it's incredibly short. I think there was only 2 volumes, but it is continued on in webcomic form on the webcomic app, so that's where I've been reading it, but there still isn't a lot more beyond what was in the volumes. This is about a girl who decides to go to work for this doctor because she needs a job, and he's just very weird and strange and kind of like a mix between Dracula and Sherlock. And it was just like really funny, a little over the top and silly, but like it was funny. I enjoyed it. It's very slice of life. But unfortunately, like, it is definitely too short, but I am still gonna put it in good because I really like it and I have a soft spot for it, and I really wish it had more issues. The next thing is Giant Days. This is one of my favorites. I love this one so much. I didn't think this would be my thing. I thought I was only gonna read like darker comics, but no, I love this one so tremendously much. It is just so lovely. It's about 3 girls who go to college in England somewhere, I believe, and they are roommates but also best friends, and it's just about their adventures, and once again it's just very slice of life, and it's just so good and so enjoyable. And this is going in God tier for sure because I just adore it. The next thing here is Gideon Falls. I just read this recently. It's a horror comic. It's very strange. It all has to do with this guy who can see this thing called the Red Barn, or no, the Black Barn? I don't remember what color it was. It's a barn, and only he can see it, and it just like shows up at random times. But there's also been all these rumors about it and about all the like crazy things it's doing. Anyways, eventually this priest comes to town and he also sees the Black Barn, and it's just like this big conspiracy theory that a couple other people get wrapped up into, and this cop who, like, her brother went missing, and it's a whole thing. I read about 17 issues of this, which I don't think there's a ton more out than that, but 17 issues in, it felt like we hadn't gotten any farther than issue 1. Like, it just didn't feel like a lot was happening. It didn't feel like we were finding out anything more. It was a very similar experience to Morning Glories, where it's just everyone beats around the bush and it's super vague, and it just starts to feel a little pointless. So I'm gonna put this in not good. I don't know if I'm gonna continue on with that one personally. The next one on here is Ever After. I just read this like a couple nights ago, actually. I got it off NetGalley. I believe this might be a German novel that is being translated into English. It's about a zombie apocalypse sort of situation, and it really revolves around 2 girls who were in this one community, but now they've kind of been pushed out and they're trying to like make it on their own. It was cute. It wasn't my favorite. It felt a lot like The Walking Dead. It is like a one-off, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I just felt like I didn't get to know the characters well enough to care about their friendship. I will say that they had, like, every so often, of course, sprinkled throughout, like, one-page art, like just one big panel for a page, and like those were so good that I felt like I could have taken them out and like put them on my wall. Loved those, but everything else about this I wasn't super excited about, so this is going in meh. Something's Killing Children. I also read a couple days ago. I got it off NetGalley. This is about a community where a bunch of kids go missing and end up getting killed, and this woman comes to town who believes that she can slay whatever demons are killing these monsters, or are killing these children. Has sort of a Buffy feel. I personally just wasn't really into it. I don't even know if I could explain why, other than, once again, I just felt like I didn't get to know any of the characters enough to care. I only read 1 volume, but that's still 200 pages, and usually by the end of the volume I know whether or not I like something, and I just wasn't super excited about this. I will say I did like the gory horror atmosphere, but I'm not a big like monster person, so I don't know. I'm putting this in meh. Once again, it wasn't bad, I just didn't love it personally. Next is Lock and Key. This is one of my favorites. This was my favorite thing I read last year. It's since been turned into a TV show that I was so excited for, but yet haven't watched because I am so lazy. I heard someone describe Lock and Key as horror Narnia, and that is so freaking accurate. This takes place in like this gothic house where this family moves to. The dad has recently been murdered, and they're all dealing with their grief, but they're also dealing with these mysterious keys that do all sorts of different crazy things, and it's just amazing, and I love it so much. It does have a weird tone to it because it's like half childish fantasy sort of, while also being super dark and graphic and horror, so I loved it. This is going into God tier, obviously, so. The next thing, The Boys. So this has also been turned into a TV show. It's on Amazon. I absolutely love the TV show. It was one of my favorite things I watched last year. This is about a world in which superheroes are celebrities, essentially. They exist, they're real, and they're beloved. They're also kind of corporate. Their fame is very capitalized. And then there are some people who want to take down the superheroes because they're getting away with terrible things. And it focuses on this one guy who had a girlfriend who was killed by a superhero. I hated the comic books. I wanted to love them so bad. When I started them, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna love this because it starts out with a bang. Same with the TV show. And I thought for sure I was gonna be really, really into it, but it's just so shitty. It's like a 12-year-old boy wrote it because like it's just one unnecessary joke after another, when really it's just like offensive comments left and right that you can tell like where they're like, look at us, we're edgy, and it's just so try hard, and I hated it. It just felt like there wasn't any story. It was just like offensive thing after offensive thing. Wasn't into it, and this is going in the trash column. The next is The Fade Out. I started this a while ago and didn't get further, and I don't know why. This focuses on 50s Hollywood, and I believe it's a murder mystery. I don't know a ton more about it because, like I said, I started it and didn't get very far into it. I think I'm gonna love it, but I'm going to put this in the need to read more because I definitely do. Next is Slam. I read this last month, and this has kind of 2 volumes. It's Slam and Slam the Next Jam. Each only has 4 issues. This is essentially just about roller derby girls and their love of roller derby. I really enjoyed this, like a lot actually, but it's just so short and I want it to be so much longer. I want to actually get a story with them because it doesn't really feel like there's a story. In the first volume, it's basically just introducing you to roller derby and the rules and community of roller derby. And then in the second volume, that's where the story starts out a little bit more, but then it's like they thought they were gonna write more, but then didn't. So a lot of things were kind of like left unsaid, so that was weird. And I'm gonna put this in good. Although it could also go in meh, but I'll leave it in good. The next thing is Sandman. This is by Neil Gaiman, and I read this last month because I was trying to give Neil Gaiman a second chance because I really hated American Gods last year, and it turns out I hate this too. This is about some guys who decided to trap the Sandman in their basement or something, and eventually he gets let out and he has to like make it back to his homeworld, and I don't really know what else happened after that because I read 2 issues and it felt like I had been reading it for hours because it was so freaking boring. So I hated this. It's going in trash. People are going to be mad about that, and I don't care. The next thing I have here is Kindred by Octavia Butler, and this is the graphic novel version of the actual book. This was so impactful. First of all, I didn't think I was going to read the book because I just didn't know if it would be my sort of thing. I'm not really much on historical type things. But after reading this graphic novel, I have to read the book because it just hit so hard. Like this is about a black woman who I'm not sure when it takes place, the 1970s maybe, and somehow she keeps getting transported back to like the 1800s. She doesn't know how it happens, she doesn't know when it'll happen, how it'll happen, whatever. She knows she's attached to this one young white boy, and that it's in his times of need when she suddenly shows up, but it rips her out of her current life. Like, she keeps coming back to her current life, and then it'll just randomly rip her out of her current life back to the 1800s and this boy. It just really shows like graphic violence that is done to black women and black men, of course, and it's a crazy look at this historical time period that we know about but obviously haven't experienced, and it was so impactful. It made me cry, which is not something that happens very often, even from books, let alone graphic novels. It's intense and everybody should read it, and it's definitely going in God tier. The next one is Fables, which I've obviously already told you about. This is the Once Upon a Time type comic. I love this one so much. This is definitely going in God tier. It is really long. It's like 200 issues or something, or maybe 150, but it was just like one of my favorite reading experiences ever. I enjoyed it so much. All the characters I just ended up loving. All these characters that you don't think you'll care about end up being some of your favorites by the end because they just do such a good job of giving character arcs to people who were kind of sideline Fables before. It's a classic, and for good reason. I'm so glad I read it. The next thing on here is Blackbird. I was really bummed about Blackbird because I read the first issue and loved it, but I really didn't like any of the subsequent issues. I read, I think, 6 or 8 issues in total. This is about a girl who can see this other world. She can see these gods that no one else can see. The first time she witnessed it, she was a child. I believe her mother is killed, and then she doesn't witness it for quite a while. She grows up. All of a sudden her sister goes missing, and that's just like the first issue. And then the subsequent issues just like kind of show her getting into this world and exploring it and such. My problem with it was mostly the pacing. Like, it moves so fast that it felt like there was so much story to tell, and yet it felt like it was skipping over everything, and it just wasn't, I don't know, making you care about the things that were happening because they were happening so fast. It's hard to explain. I wasn't really into it. It also felt a little young, and so I ended up not really liking it. So this is gonna go in not good, unfortunately, which really bums me out, especially because like the artwork in that is incredible. Some of my favorites, so beautiful. The next thing is Fence, which I know everyone here on BookTube loves. Unfortunately, I did not. I read the first 6 issues and it just didn't really feel like it was going anywhere. This is about a guy who fences, essentially, and it's just about these boys fencing and them trying to get onto this big fencing team, and that's about it. And I think that was my main issue with it, was that after 6 issues, it didn't feel like it went anywhere. I didn't understand really what the story was doing, or if there was a story at all. And I wasn't attached enough to the characters to just want to watch them live their everyday life and interact. So this is going in not good. Although, like, I feel like that's harsh and maybe it should go in meh. No, it's going in not good. Whatever. Here we are. Next is Why the Last Man. This is a classic, and I've got to say, I'm not really sure why. Not to say that's bad, because it's not. I did enjoy it. I finished it completely. I think it had around 35 issues-ish, or maybe 50, somewhere in there. This is about, once again, some sort of post-apocalypse. All the men have died, except for this one man named Yorick. He is the last man on Earth. Him and his male monkey, for some reason. He goes out on a quest to find his girlfriend, who is living in Australia. And then the government gets involved, and he ends up having like a handler, and some other shit goes down, and it's just like you following his adventure to find his girlfriend. The thing I want to say about this is that as a whole, it was really good. The character arc and the character growth that York goes through from issue 1 to the end is really substantial, and I feel like that was the best part of the series. I also really like the tone of the series, because even though it's dealing with this like heavy topic, it keeps a light tone about it. The fact that I made it to the end was just like by chance, because I happened to see some of the volumes on sale, because if I hadn't, I really wouldn't have continued on. I wasn't that interested by the first volume. I found it pretty boring. I found York really, really annoying. But of course, he had to start out as annoying and useless to get to the point that he does at the end of the book. I will say, I don't feel like this had that deep of a message, whereas I feel like other people maybe were getting things from it that I wasn't. I did like the ending, so I would probably give it a better rating than I would have had I done this earlier. So this is going to go in the, they're gonna go in good or meh. Honestly, I keep forgetting that I even read it, so I feel like it should go in meh. But it is better than some of the other things I put in that category, so it's hard to say. The next is another spin-off to the Fables franchise, and that is Jack of Fables, which is focusing on Jack of the Beanstalk from the Fables storyline. Jack of the Beanstalk is a very unlikable character because he is like this charming guy who's kind of a dick. Like, he's very self-obsessed and kind of a con man. I enjoyed this series off and on. I didn't find it consistently good, which was a problem with Fables as well, because of course when anything goes on too long, it can become a problem with consistency, but this one was only 50 issues, so it shouldn't have been as big of a problem as it was. I feel like it got better towards the end because it stopped focusing on Jack. I feel like there was a lot of interesting concepts that they didn't explore, and that was pretty disappointing. So this is definitely going to go in meh, I think. Or not good. I guess it was just meh. The next is Joyride. This is a space adventure. Basically, these people are a part of Earth, but they aren't allowed out in space. And this girl's just like rebellious and wants to go to space, so she does, and she takes her best friend, and they got, you know, a couple other crew members along. You know the type of story this is. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one. I found it kind of forgettable. I didn't find it that good. I felt like it was explaining things and they didn't end up making sense. And it was also only 15 issues, which a series has to be pretty outstanding to be memorable when it's only 15 issues long. So yeah, this is just gonna go in not good. Although I will say it wasn't like terrible, it just wasn't memorable at all, and I wouldn't really recommend it. The next thing is Sweet Tooth. I recently tried to read this. I didn't read a lot of it. I read probably 4 or 5 issues. This is about a boy who has antlers. He is some sort of animal-human hybrid, and there's been another sort of apocalypse situation, and he's hiding out in a cabin in the woods, and his dad is like, you can't go out into the world because people will see you and they'll kill you, etc. And his dad dies, and he does go out. I believe he ends up trying to find the sanctuary for the hybrids. And like I said, I only read like 4 or 5 issues. I didn't really like this, but I think it's more because of expectations. I thought this was going to be like a middle grade or at least like younger, happier than it ended up being. It was very much like The Walking Dead. Like, it was not a happy story. So I'm just gonna put this in not good because I don't really want to read more. So I feel like if it had been good, even if it wasn't what I was expecting, then I would have wanted to read more regardless. So yeah. The next one here is Lumberjanes. I've been reading this a lot lately because I really want to read more Giant Days, but I can't afford it right now. I haven't said this yet, but I read all of my comics through Comixology. I have the Comixology unlimited subscription. I can read a ton of comics for free in a month. I have ran out of my free Giant Days, so I have to wait till I can afford some Giant Days again. So instead, I've been reading Lumberjanes. Lumberjanes is basically just about a bunch of girls who go to this like summer camp. It's about their everyday life, but then there's also like a ton of crazy fantasy shit going on. The first storyline involved like mythology. Like, I'm about 30 issues into this, I think. I believe it's about 70 issues long, maybe. But this is just a very happy, cute storyline. It's kind of like Giant Days, except maybe like a step younger. I've really been enjoying it. There is like a female-female relationships. That's super cute. And I'm gonna put this in good. The next thing on this list I actually feel like would fit into that Giant Days, Lumberjanes sort of category, and that's The Backstagers. This is about a group of theater kids, except it's the stage crew. They just formed this ragtag group of friends. But there is a fantasy world in their storage closet. I just recently read this, and I honestly feel like this is just a different version of Lumberjanes, whereas Lumberjanes, it's all females. Backstagers, it's all males. And I feel like it's essentially the same sort of storyline. The thing that made me sad about The Backstagers is it's a very short series. I think it has like 10 issues. I read them super quick and I was really bummed to be over it. There's a male-male relationship, once again, super cute. And it's very much in that like middle grade. I'm going to put those, once again, it's so hard because like I'm not super attached to this series because it was so short, but it was decent. I'm gonna put it in meh. Because I will say the ending, near the end, I got really confused as to what was happening because it just didn't feel like anything was happening and nothing really made sense. Like, they're like, we have to save theater! And I'm like, why? Like, who cares? You're risking your lives for this. It's Anyways. The next thing here is A Fire Story, which is actually a graphic novel from someone who went through the California fires that happened a couple years ago. And this was so depressing and so sad, obviously important, and yeah, I don't know what to say about this one. I actually didn't finish it. I only got halfway through and I was crying and I was like, alright, I need to put this down and come back. This was just last month, so I haven't come back to it yet. But it's the author's storyline of what happened to him and his wife and losing everything they owned, but it's also got different articles interspersed about other people in the community's storylines. It's just heart-wrenching. I'm gonna put this in good. It is upsetting, but obviously beautifully done. This next one is called A Walk Through Hell. This is by, I believe, the same writer who wrote The Boys. I will say, better than The Boys, still didn't enjoy it. I read this off NetGalley recently. I don't even fucking know how to explain what this is. Literally, when I was done, I literally wrote, what the fuck did I just read? Because this has to do with two officers who have sort of a X-Files thing going on, and they have to go into this warehouse to find a lost agent, but then they can't find their way back out of this warehouse, and a bunch of weird things start happening. They start seeing things. It is interspersed with a different story of their past when they were investigating this pedophile. It's very clearly commentary on the political climate, as well as saying some things about religion, and it was just really pretentious, but also weird, and I didn't feel like I got anything from it, and overall it was just really unenjoyable. So this is going in not good. It's not quite trash, but it's close. The next thing on my list is Crowded. This is basically about like a future where there's an app that you can crowdfund to kill someone. So you basically put a hit out on someone and everyone starts piling in money, and whoever kills that person gets the money. And this is one girl's story who she has like a $2 million hit out on her. It's the highest anyone's ever had, and it's about her and the girl she hires to defend her. I thought I was gonna love this. I kind of don't. It's not bad though. It's just for some reason, like, I'm not getting into it. I feel kind of like dragging myself through every issue. I've read 8 issues now, I believe. It does feel like there's gonna be a will they, won't they between the 2 females, which I like their interaction, but it doesn't feel interesting enough to really get me hooked. So this is gonna go in meh. It's definitely not bad, and I can see why other people would like it. I just haven't gotten into it enough yet. But it's not necessarily like I need to read more. There's something about it that isn't hooking me. The next thing on this list is Die. This is about a group of kids who play Dungeons and Dragons, and somehow they get this magical dice that sucks them into the game. So they're actually dealing with actual dragons and this crazy fantasy world. Their friend gets stuck in the game while they get out, and then like 20 years later they decide to go back, and now they have to defeat their friend who's kind of gone crazy to get back out of this game. I loved the first issue of this. I was immediately hooked, and I have hated every subsequent issue since then. I've only read like 5 issues or something, but I can't get into it. I don't understand freaking anything they're talking about. And I think that's just it, is it's going way the fuck over my head. I have played a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, but mostly drunk, so not really. And I just don't get it. So this is going in not good. The next thing here is Irresistible. This is about a man who feels unlucky in love. All of a sudden he becomes irresistible to women through some sort of magic. I didn't read enough. I only read like a couple issues, and I was like, yeah, this feels really cliche. It feels like something I've seen, and I wasn't interested. I am gonna put need to read more because I haven't read enough of it to truly know. Like, honestly, I can't even remember it right now, but I'm not going to read more, I will say that. The next thing on my list is Paper Girls. I absolutely loved this series. This is about 35 issues-ish. This is about a group of paper girls who find this weird alien-type spacecraft, and they get sucked through time. They end up going through a bunch of different time jumps and a bunch of different places, and they're just trying to get back to their period in time without dying. I absolutely loved this series. It was a total delight. It was something I started when I first started comics, and it's totally been a favorite throughout. I do wish that there was more time spent with each of the characters and that their characters were delved into a little bit more, but this was just such a fun adventure. I kind of love when sci-fi doesn't try to explain itself too much, because sometimes when all the crazy shit is happening, trying to explain it just somehow makes it worse because you can't explain it. So throwing this like really half-assed definition out there, it just like, you kind of twist yourself in knots trying to make it make sense, and you see all like the plot holes. Whereas if you just don't explain it, I'm just gonna go along with it. And that's what this did, and I absolutely loved it, and it's going up in God tier. It also has amazing, lovely art that is very graphic and 80s and bright colors, and it was just so fun. The next thing here is East of West. I've started this recently, totally fell in love with it. I haven't finished it yet. I think I'm on volume 7. I think it has about 10 volumes. I'm not sure how many issues that is, but let's just say around 50 issues. I feel like most of my favorite ones do sit around like 40 to 50 issues. I think that's the sweet spot. East of West is a sort of modern Western. It's, once again, this like post-apocalyptic type of story, but there are these different nations with their different heads of government. They all kind of come together to form this cult of sorts that wants to end the world, essentially. This involves the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Death is kind of the main character, and I just absolutely love him. He is on the search for his true love and his son, and the other 3 horsemen just want to get this fucking apocalypse started, and they're working with this cult to get the apocalypse started. But I truly just don't know how to explain it. I've really enjoyed this. I will say it has been rocky. There have been certain times where I haven't enjoyed it so much because I feel like there's so many different perspectives that if you don't like this one storyline and this one character, then it becomes kind of shitty to read at times. Whereas like when it's focused on Death or Death's son, I really love it because those are the storylines I love so much. So this is going to go good because it has been inconsistent, but I feel like if this sticks to landing, it could be God tier. Next thing here is I Hate Fairyland. This is about a kid who gets stuck in this thing called fairyland and essentially can't find their way out, and now they're like an adult and they're fucking sick of it. I know a lot of people love this. I don't. It just has very like crude humor, and that's just not my type of thing and my type of humor, so I just really wasn't a fan. I didn't read very much of it. I read like 1 volume and yeah, I wasn't into it. It's going in trash. Whoops. Because there was nothing about it that like made me want to read more. The next thing is Strangers in Paradise. I read this like quite a while back and I don't totally remember what this is about. Very old, and I know it was groundbreaking at the time. I believe it's about 3 or 4 characters. I remember Kachu and Franny or Francine or something, and they're roommates, and one of them is, I'm gonna say Kachu is like very, she's very dramatic and she always has drama following her. What I do remember about it is that it felt very outdated. It felt a little sexist, and I just don't enjoy reading those things really unless they have a point to them. So yeah, it's going in trash. The next thing here is Lazarus. Hard to say. I read volume 1 of this last month and really enjoyed it. I haven't read more, but like I do have it out on Comixology. I just haven't got to it. This is another post-apocalyptic storyline. Like I said, very popular in comics. This is about kind of warring nations, and they each have something called a Lazarus, which is, I think, some sort of like, not robotic, but some sort of man-made person who's just like an all-out badass spy mercenary type, but they're also like part of the nation's families. Like, I don't really know completely because I've only read volume 1, but I did really enjoy it. It has that like Alias type of feel, sort of. I'm going to say that it's good, but like that could totally be wrong because I do need to read more. It probably should go and need to read more, but I do think other people should read it because I did find it good. The next thing is Postal. I read The Blinds last year and I absolutely loved it, and this had a very similar synopsis, which is why I read it. I don't totally remember what it's about anymore, but I remember that I didn't enjoy it because they used the R word a lot and it just made me really uncomfortable, and I don't even want to say what it's about because I feel like I don't remember, so I'm just gonna put this in trash and move on. The next one is Saga. So this is obviously a total favorite here on BookTube. This is a comic about a world that's gone to war, and 2 people from 2 different nations fall in love, and they are obviously enemies, but they've fallen in love and they have a baby, and they have to like run away from the different people who are trying to find them from their nations. I read the first 2 volumes of this, but I read them kind of a while ago, and I don't love it. I know everyone loves it so much. I don't hate it, I will say that. I will definitely read more. I've already bought some more, so I do plan on reading them, but I just found it kind of meh. And once again, I just feel like maybe it's because I haven't gotten to know their characters enough. I think it's because I started when I first started comics, and there were just so many comics catching my attention, and this one didn't. So I haven't read it, I guess, but I feel like soon is the time to read it. So it's going in meh for now. Hopefully that'll change. I'm sure it will because everybody adores it. The next one on this list is Skyward. This is about a world where there is no gravity anymore. Just all of a sudden, one day, gravity just left. And a bunch of people died because obviously they just floated up off the ground, and that's always a problem. Everyone's always scared that they could go spaceward. This was also very short. This was only like 15 issues, but this was so much better than something similar, which was like Joyride. I read them around the same time and they were kind of similar, but Skyward was so good compared to Joyride. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the storylines. Once again, I wish it was a bit longer so everything could again got fleshed out more, but like this world was so vivid and so well executed for such a short amount of time. This is going to go in good. If it was longer, it would totally be God tier, but I just feel like, of course, we ended up having to leave the characters so soon. The next on here is Swing. This is a story about swingers. That's basically it. They're married and their sex life is getting kind of boring, so they decide to become swingers. This first issue didn't have enough for me to love. This was volume 1. I really enjoyed it, and I do have the second volume somewhere around here, but the first volume just didn't, like, it was just them deciding to become swingers, but like they hadn't really experienced anything yet. So for now I'm going to put it in good because I enjoyed it. I just haven't read enough of it yet. Alright, the next thing is The Wicked and the Divine. I don't understand this one, unfortunately. I know that this is about a bunch of gods who suddenly appear on Earth and they have to get people to believe in them or something. I don't totally understand this series. I read probably 3 volumes and still didn't understand it, which is not a great thing. I know it's like beloved and I just don't get it. It had a lot of different perspectives too, which kind of threw me off. I am going to put this in not good because I just don't understand it. I can't even explain it. I definitely will probably try it out again at some point, but the next one is Nancy Drew. This was kind of a reimagining of Nancy Drew, and she had this group of friends and it was just a mystery. It only had 1 volume. I really enjoyed that 1 volume. I feel like in terms of age range, there's like Goldie Vance was here, Nancy Drew here, and then like Veronica Mars here. So it was kind of that in-between teen and child. I will say the tone was very weird because it felt really young at times, but then it would also talk about very serious things. But I'm going to put it in the good column because I grew attached to the characters so quickly, and I would love to read more from the series if they had actually made more. The next here is Violent Love. This is very much like a Bonnie and Clyde type couple. I haven't read enough of this. I only read the first issue, so that's just gonna go automatically in need to read more. The next one is The Walking Dead. I read the entire series. This is about 200 issues long, and I absolutely loved it. I've watched the show as well, but I only watched the show to season 7 or something, and when the show is good, it's great, but The Walking Dead comics are consistent, and that is a big plus. They are just consistently good. Oh, another big thing is that I actually like Rick in the comics, whereas I hate Rick in the show, so there's that. The Walking Dead is essentially just zombies. I feel like everyone knows that. If you're just looking for something that has action and has characters that you will come to like, but for me, this is going to go in the, I don't know if it should go in good or god tier because I did very much like it. And it was a good reading experience overall when I was reading it, but I do feel like I'm kind of forgetting it already. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it in good. The next thing here is Watchmen. I tried to read this. I only read a couple issues and I was just like, this is so pretentious. I can't do this. So this is going in trash, even though I know people love it. I couldn't get through it. There's just certain things where it just comes off too full of itself. And that's that. The last thing here is Witches. This is a horror novel about these witches that are kind of living in these trees, and someone gets killed and the witches are coming for the town. I don't totally remember. This was a one-off. It's just like one completed graphic novel story. Witches was something that I just didn't really like. It has really dark but very overdone graphics, I felt like, because I just felt like I couldn't figure out what to focus on. It was just so much. I understood the story, but I didn't really love it. I just didn't get much from it and I barely remember it, so it's going in not good. I'm also just not a huge fan of witches in general. Like, when it comes to horror stories, I love horror, but witches are not my thing. So that seems to be all of the comics here, even though I know that I also had Survivors Club, which did not show up on here. And that one I wanted to love so much. It was about people who had survived different horror situations, and they all sounded like classic horror movies, like Poltergeist type things and Exorcist type things, crap like that. And all these survivors are kind of getting picked off and all this other stuff is happening. Anyways, it sounded really interesting and it turned out to be kind of weird. I didn't totally understand what the crap was happening. Like, it just went off the wall. I feel like if I went into it not having the expectations I had, I would have liked it a lot more, but it probably would have gone in the meh category. So there we are. There is my completed tier ranking, and hopefully you got something from this video. I definitely recommend everything that's in the God tier. Every single one of those is so great, as well as most of the ones in the good tier, of course. But obviously, taste is subjective and all that, as I'm sure people will tell me. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope you'll come back again soon. Bye.